Our mission is to improve the lives of rural dwellers in Africa, to improve their nutrition, to improve their health, to improve their income. And we do this through research, to develop technologies and knowledge that will help agricultural producers and processors and rural families to do their job better. They face biological challenges with their crops and their animals, such as diseases that reduce their yields, insects that reduce their yields.
And in this context, we set for ourselves in our latest strategy that we will work towards removing 11 million Africans out of poverty. But we will do it in such a way that we protect the natural resources so that there is sustainability.
Cassava is an extremely important crop in Africa. It is one of the crops that can be used to adapt our farming situations to climate change. IITA, through cassava breeding, has produced hundreds of varieties that are ready for farmers to transform their livelihoods as farmers. And we are working with national authorities to develop certification systems that work and are practical. And then we're using these new technologies of rapid multiplication that can be used for large-scale rapid dissemination through projects, but also through commercial means, so that the cassava crop can be sustained in a commercially driven system.
So this is a cassava tuberous root. It's a good size, but you can see the color of the root cortex there is kind of brown, black. That's a typical symptom of cassava brown streak disease. Brown streak has suddenly become a major pandemic. You're talking, hundreds of thousands of people whose food security is threatened. So there's been a race on for the researchers to try and identify ways of combating them, and the main approach has been through trying to develop host plant resistance. So resistant varieties that don't get affected, or if they do get affected, have a minimal effect.
Maize breeding at IITA has been tackling the major production constraints limiting productivity, agronomic fitness and adaptation, mainly in tropical lowlands, and also increasing nutritional and post-harvest quality. Our program has a strong partnership with CIMMYT, the National Agricultural Research Systems, the private sector, and also advanced research laboratories, which resulted in the development and release of more than 490 varieties and hybrids. These varieties and hybrids have significantly contributed to the phenomenal increase in maize production in West and Central Africa. Our current breeding program has been designed in such a way that will deliver products that are more productive, nutritious, and multiple stress resilient, that are attractive to farmers to have a greater impact at the farm level.
Here in IITA, we're developing new yam varieties and new technology from yam research that can be adopted by farmers and industry to make yam more profitable and increase productivity. We have a strong team here in IITA working on seed multiplication and to rapidly get clean seed into the farmer's hands. This technology, the combination of seed, agronomy, and breeding and genetics can give farmers new opportunities to even enhance the value of yam in Nigeria and West Africa.
Well, IITA has a major activity in terms of research in cowpea. It is a crop that is grown mostly in the dry areas of sub-Saharan Africa. It's been developed to actually adapt better and perform even in the face of drought. We use the genetic germplasm material that's available to facilitate this process. So we use both conventional genetics breeding We also use molecular tools such as molecular markers to facilitate progress in the development of cowpea varieties that are resilient to climate change.
In IITA, we develop and deploy cutting-edge genomic tools, including innovative molecular breeding schemes, diagnostics, in vitro propagation, and genetic engineering to accelerate development of superior varieties. Here in Nigeria, we have world-class laboratory with competencies in DNA and RNA analysis, sequencing, fingerprinting, tissue culture, and bioinformatics. We also have laboratories in Benin, Kenya, and Tanzania. We provide training on different topics to enable our partners benefit from biotechnology. Our facilities are also open to our partners.
A lot of Africans eat a lot of carbohydrate foods, and to supplement that, we need a lot of protein, at least for improvement, and for longevity, and for health purposes. Varieties that we develop here are of high protein content. And again, we have varieties that are amenable to what we call integrated soil fertility management. That is an aspect that is required for climate-smart agriculture.
Transgenic is a tool in which you can transfer the gene from outside of that species, even within that species, to the other species. So this is the banana transgenic, which has the gene from the green pepper in it. We test them under the glasshouse condition. The control non-transgenic plants develop symptoms and they completely wilt within month time. But our transgenic plants doesn't develop any symptom and they actually are quite resistant.
When we've been able to come up with these varieties, the next challenge, so that we can get the benefit out of them, is to make sure that the planting material or the seeds of this can get into the hands of farmers. And there we're working very closely with our partners in the national systems and then development agencies and seed companies in the private sector.
At the Genetic Resources Centre of IITA, we have very important international collections of many of the most important staple crops of sub-Saharan Africa. The diversity that we have within these collections is very important as a cornerstone of breeding programs to increase food security within Africa.
IITA, when we are talking about empowering women, addressing gender issues, disparities between men and women, in terms of access to knowledge, in terms of income, decision making, it's not just a rhetoric. Both men and women have benefited, especially how women are empowered through these technologies, through our interventions. If you want to bring more investment and expand the impact, then we have evidence. That's what we are talking about.
Me, I don't talk man, into woman now. The factory in India bring me up small. Because if I work here, if we get small profit, me boss man, they say, yeah, this. So now from this factory, the home, they stands firm.
The BIP is quite unique in its approach because what we try to do is we take technologies developed at the IITA, which already have proof of concept. We scale them up, not just as a project, but in a commercial way. We also have the objectives from the IITA that we have to bring technologies to the market at an affordable price for the farmer. So from here, this is a platform, it's incubated, it's somewhat protected, but our aim is to get them outside in the market as free businesses.
Youth unemployment is a very serious challenge in Africa, and everyone will agree with me that it's time to begin to engage the youth in productive avenues of agriculture. So basically, the IITA Youth Agripreneurs, IA, started off in August 2012. We never saw agribusiness or agriculture as a gold mine, but today we're proud to be called farmers.
Most of people, even young people, they're taking agriculture like last option. But nowadays, I see most of young people engaging in agriculture.
There is no way Africa is going to make progress without addressing key issue of agriculture production. And for Africa to do that, is basically to increase production, agriculture production, and IITA is at the forefront of addressing those issues because it's dealing with the major crops here in Africa.
We are very encouraged by the progress that has been made thus far, but we are also conscious of the fact that even more research and delivery will be required, which is aimed at transforming African agriculture in such a way that agriculture really becomes the engine for economic development for African countries.
I would like to introduce now to you Dr. Terania Sanginga, Director General of IITA, soil scientist by training, has been the DG of IITA for the last 7 successful years, 7 successful transformative years, and he's going to tell us especially about the transformative aspect more now. Terania, you have the floor. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, thank you, Christian, for giving us the opportunity to come and talk with our colleagues in Germany. We appreciate the time you've taken to come and listen to us. You know, we are very busy, and really, we will pay back when you come to Africa. Yeah. What I'd like to do is basically to try to show how the mindset is really changing in Africa, and how we would like to change the mindset, and especially of the young people who would like to be the champion of agriculture tomorrow in Africa. And the mindset is not going to be only of the young people. It's going to be the mindset of the leaders, of the president of our countries in Africa. And I have a privilege of meeting some of those head of states. And what is really happening today when we talk to them? We're telling them, for so long, agriculture has been considered that as a social and development activity. Meet a minister, he worked for ODA to come and develop agriculture in this continent. We believe that is completely wrong. And what has been happening with that mindset, that agriculture become basically associated with 3 P's, as are called: pain, penuries, and poverty. That's what it is if agriculture continues to count on ODA, on donors funding. And what we want to change is really to make sure that agriculture is really considered as a business. When someone coming from Europe, for example, instead of coming with aid, we prefer him coming or her coming with investment. It makes a lot of difference. And if that happens, then we'll be associating agriculture with wealth and job, and especially jobs. And the reason is very simple. So today, Africa is spending $35 billion importing food that we can produce in Africa. And if we don't do anything for them coming until 2025, that's going to triple. What it means is that when we're importing that food, we are creating jobs in Thailand, in the US, $35 billion. That's the meaning of that, when we continue importing food. And we import that food, create jobs in those places where we're importing, where we have 60% of our youth unemployed. It's the irony. But we do have another problem. Most of the farmers today on the continent are 63 years old, on average. My age. I'm still very strong, but if you go to village, someone who is my age, hardly you can stand up. So there is a gap between the generation of the farmers today and those of tomorrow. We've calculated almost 20 to 30 years old. And the irony is that the young people today, they're not interested in agriculture. It's considered as a punishment and so on. Here is an example of Nigeria. 4 crops there. Wheat can be produced in Nigeria, northern Nigeria, around Kano, rice, all over the country, sugar and fish. So Nigeria is spending almost $11 billion to import food per year. So made a small calculation. We have 17 million of the young people basically without a job, that's 60%. And if you use $11 billion to create food enterprises in Nigeria, and you assume that you will pay $1,000 per young person, basically you create per year 1 million jobs. If you just do mathematics, and basically in 10 years you can reduce the unemployment rate of 60% to around 7%. Simple mathematics. And you wonder, you have a head of state, why are they not thinking that way? Here's an example of Nigeria. If you look here, Nigeria in the 60s produced almost 52% of groundnut in the world. But today, it's 0. These are some of the pictures we used to see in Kano, waiting for export to Europe, all over the place. But because of this fungus, that aspergillus flowers, is producing aflatoxin, basically the cause of this production today. So the aflatoxin has consequences not only on trade, but we discover that most of the cancer, which in Africa, when someone died and was sick, we thought it was witchcraft. But most of the time, today we're discovering that most of that being cancer caused by peanuts, even maize. And we found it even in sorghum. It's a safety issue. In Kenya, every year, we have 200 people dying because of aflatoxin coming from maize. So basically, what we're trying to do at IITA is to help resolve this kind of problem so Nigeria can gain its glory again of food production. So IITA, we've been doing research for the past 20 years, and we have discovered a product called Aflasafe, which is a biocontrol product which basically help eliminate the bad fungi. This is by competition and displacement. So I won't go in detail. Suffice to say that we came with this product called Aflasafe, and we tested it for a lot of time, and we were able to reduce the level of contamination from probably 100% to 80%. It's a product that works. It works in groundnut, it works in maize, and so on. And we've been successful, and basically we've been working with few farmers. And in September 11, we got a visit from Bill Gates. He came to Kano to some development scouting, and he came and visited some of our experiments. And I remember I was DG elect, that was my first time meeting him. And after he had visited, see 2 or 3 farmers happy with the field, he asked me the question, just you are working with 50 farmers. How can this technology benefit millions? So as a research institution, we're used to do pilot studies, and you're happy, and you publish. This was a question basically asking us, how do you reach millions? It was not an easy question, because we as a center, we were used to do research, probably in capacity building. We excel in those 2, but very poor in delivery. And when we start studying this, we realize that there's a lot of missing links between the delivery and research. Sometimes you're working on variety that the farmers do not even want. This is a pure, I think, a classical example of that. You're working on a problem which is not a problem. Yes, capacity building. We've learned a lot here. Yeah, in the past, some people like us went and been trained in US on some of the technologies which were irrelevant in Africa. So really, for us, we start thinking about these missing links if we wanted basically to reach those millions of people to reach. And basically, like this expression, how do you relate the sense of discovery to the sense of delivery? So one of the things that came in our mind, and that's what we transform the way we're doing business. We say, let's create some of the business incubation platform. Maybe this will help us deliver some of the technology we want to deliver. And this is a model, basically, of research people are being used to. You develop your products, and basically you go through the extension or scaling, and basically our experiments show that, as usual, you don't reach too many people. And we said, IITA, let's experiment. Let's commercialize some of the technology we have, industrialize them a little bit, produce in volume. Maybe we'll be reaching more people and having more partners, private sector coming in. That was basically the strategy. And we start changing even the way we do business at IITA. If you've been IITA before 2011, was a typical research institute with labs and with field. But if we were to reach 1 million and commercialize these technologies, we need to start thinking like people in industry think, people who want to go very much to scale, and we start building modular factory. This is a factory that's producing this product we call AflaSafe. And we collaborated with USDA. I think there are 2 factories only in the US because they had a problem with AflaSafe in the US, aflatoxin in the US, in granite. And we worked with the USDA and we have built this modular factory, which basically helped to produce this product in volume. And yes, we have started in Nigeria on maize and granite. And we started in 2013, and the level of production is really going up because the private sector is taking most of the process of marketing the product. And then, just an example of what happened. As I said before, Kenya had, especially in the region of Ukambani, for people who know Kenya very well, 200 people dying per year because of maize contaminated by aflatoxin. So the president of Kenya heard that IITA is producing AflaSafe, and he came to Nigeria and met the president of Nigeria. I remember I was called to go and explain what it is. So Kenya gets interested, and we've built a similar factory in Kenya, and it was being managed by the private sector for the moment. And yes, then, as remember very well, we have to reach millions, and we started very, very, very small, but we've seen the exponential increase in the number, the total hectare that we're covering. Even the number of farmers basically is increasing using this product. We're able to reach more farmers. And our target is basically to treat almost 500,000 hectares in the next coming 5 years, and do that in 11 countries. And basically, we help all these countries which are in the process of working efficiently in Nigeria, Burkina Faso, and Senegal, Kenya, but we see a lot of numerous countries asking for that product, basically. Another example can cite is cassava. Cassava is going to become the most industrial crop in Africa for the moment. And the research done by IITA basically has a major impact. And almost if you did an impact studies, and my colleague Sia Magnon demonstrates that most of the varieties planted in Nigeria are bred from IITA. And what is happening for the moment, just like Nigeria, cassava used to be used only for human consumption, only. But today, you see, if you go to Nigeria, there are a lot of factories which are basically producing starch, chips, the high quality cassava flour, which is being used almost 20% in wheat bread. And basically in Nigeria, we were able to save about $1 billion of imports wheat due to replacement of this cassava produced locally in that. And we see the private sector which resisted it. I remember there was even a meeting in the US to prevent cassava being used in bread. Basically, the policies of the government oblige today all the bakers to put at least 10% of cassava and still increasing the production. And we see private company now getting involved in cassava production in Nigeria. And the expectation when you are trying to industrialize cassava is to create jobs. So jobs. This is a picture in Kenya. I took it 1 month ago. I was in Nairobi, and a newspaper was presenting this picture of Susie Kaoya. She graduated in 2000, and in 2018 she still didn't have a job. Here in Nigeria, this picture is taken in the stadium. You will think that Bayern is playing in Madrid. No, this was not football. This was the youth who graduated, and the call for 5,000 jobs of immigration. And there were almost 1 million applicants. So there was no place where you could put all these people, so that you stadiums. And every time when they were calling the name, because of doing the selection, suppose they called John Sanginga, come and take, give your application. There will be 100 John Sanginga in the stadium. And they will all rush to run, to go and present the papers, and there were 20 young people killed because of that. Not far, here at home, this is the gate of IITA. Every Monday of each month, we recruit casual workers. But they come, there's almost 400 young people that Monday, and I was just passing by, and people were fighting with a policeman, fight between young people, and some of them are here. Those two abroad are part of that group. They were fighting the police because they want to come and do the job of casual, cutting grasses and other things. So I stood there and I started interviewing most of them. It took 3 hours interviewing. And my question was very simple. What are you coming to do here? Where are you coming from? And what did you study? Most of them were graduates. I studied physics. I studied communication. I studied ICT. I'm an engineer. I'm a lawyer. No job and so on. And basically, that went really very deep in my hand because I'm a parent as well, and seeing those young people who can basically go and become Boko Haram, rebellions, and so on. So we decided at IITA to pick a sample among those people, different discipline, and we made sure that we pick people in equal gender, 50% young people, young ladies. So these are the young people. In 2012, I started with experimenting. And I called them in the room and I said, well, you have a choice. You go and stay in town doing nothing, or maybe you can use agriculture as a source of a job. And our hypothesis was very simple. And we said, can agriculture create a job from $0 to 350? And if we do well, maybe 700. And we said, and if you succeed, we create your own entity, your own organization. And it was based on 3 principles. First of all, we need to be up to date with technologies and use value chain of the different crops that we have. It has to be capacity in terms of business skill. We make sure that it's acquired. But we want to make sure as well that we develop a kind of partnership, because we want these young people to start advocating for other young people. And we set some goal, some outcome, and we said, if we succeed, probably 20% will become self-employed. Maybe 10% will be employed by the factories, the business we've created at IITA. The private sector maybe will come and pick some of the few people. Maybe some will continue the studies, and we'll give ourselves 20% as a target for failure. And this was a model we used. Basically, we spent a few months to the training, the testing, developing the products, and they're going to explain just in a few minutes what they'll be doing. Looking for the business, and we'll be looking for startup. We'll give some money, and basically we start waiting. They will be capable of taking some loan once they are successful. And after 18 months of discussion, training, and so on, we wanted to see the kind of orientation these young people were going to take after training. And actually, 70% of them, for fact, say, oh, we're going to go and start doing business. Some wanted to remain and run the organization, and some wanted to be in leader position. I think it would make sense. So what has happened is that during the time they have created 41 business plans in Nigeria, DRC, and Kenya. We have some startups. They're going to talk about it today. And well, we've been looking for money, and we indicate how we've done that. This is an example of 3 of these young people here who created a catfish processing center. I started small with around $15,000 on. And they are really doing very well. The products, the outlets, I think the examples are going to be given by the young people who are here. So because this program became a little successful, the African Development Bank decided that they are going to include it part of the program to develop basically the youth agribusiness program across Africa. And today, the target is to invest around 12.5 billion across 25 African countries to create this type of jobs. And basically, we're talking about each country investing almost $500 million in this program for almost 10 years. And we have a number of countries, 25, who are applying for this program. And all what we'll be doing as IITA is to build capacity here, and involve some partners of business to support these young people, and so basically they can get access to finances. I believe this story, there are a lot of challenges in it. Everything is not perfect, and we look for ideas, collaboration And I'll say thank you for listening.
Before we move over to these two testimonial case studies by the two young agripreneurs that are with us today, if you have any questions directly to Sanginga now, please go ahead. Yes, please, Matthias.
Sanginga, thanks a lot for sharing this success story, and we look forward to the testimonies of your colleagues later on. Just one point, you said average farm age, 63 years. I just did a survey in Asia of rice farmers, it's the same story. The farmers are old. Getting people into agribusiness, getting them into value addition, getting them into processing is one thing, but what we need are getting the young people on the farm and work the land and produce the food, not only the value addition and the processing. Any success stories in that line? Can you, or what do you think is needed to convince people to stay on the farm and not go to town and do value addition and processing, but actually grow more food?
Yeah, thank you. I believe that it's not that the young people do not want to be on the farm. I'll give example of a few of them. But the challenge for them on farm has been the access to land. Most of the time, it's not easy to be reformed in that sector. Otherwise, the young people have an example. Rosaline, for example, a colleague of the young people there. She's 300 kilometers from Ibadan, in a place called Mokwa. And in Korea, she produces 50 hectares of maize, vitamin A, and she found markets. She's so excited, and sometimes she's even employing some people, some other young people using mechanization, of course, and so on. So the challenge really is to get access to land. And I think for me, that's more a problem. These young people, they're not thinking like us anymore. As long as they can get money, they go. And I'm seeing that, and so we've changed completely the mindset. It's not as in the past anymore.
More questions? Stefan?
In the same direction. Quite often you find old farmers with children, but the children don't want to stay in the farms, so they could have access to land, but they don't want. They go to cities.
Yes, that has been the story. I want to give you, and I'm saying this is perfect. The direction you're changing, maybe 1, 2, 3. So this young lady from the medical doctor trained in Australia and went back to Zambia. And father passed away, and he has probably 100 hectares of land. And she decided she's not going to practice medicine anymore. She is in the land and producing tomato, taking care of that. Every time to time she goes to the city. I believe that things and the young people are changing. Yes, it's better spend 3 months in a village and 1 week in town. In fact, some of them don't want even to stay in town anymore because there's the opportunity.
I don't see any further hands. There. Follow-up question, Stefan.
Yes, but not on that issue. I have a question on this AFLA safe issue because we are dealing with it as well. How big is the success of AFLA safe, and how high are the costs compared to the outcome?
Frederick, would you like to address that?
Yes. Well, I can speak about the microphone. The costs are between $15 to $18 per hectare. The farmer can depend if he uses OP or hybrid varieties, $152 to $550 per hectare, only on the AFLA safe. So I don't speak about the price he gets for the maize, he just gets on the AFLA safe. So $152 to $550 for hybrids, and the cost between $15 to $18 per hectare. So it's a good deal. If you want more, you can ask me later if you want details.
I see no more hands. Thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. So, I would like to call upon Akbotoba Ibokun, who is going to, let me help you here, who is going to tell us everything we always wanted to know. About the chicken lady. The floor is yours. So this is, okay. No, that was the wrong one. So here, move this way. Yeah. And the pointer is good point. Never use the pointer. Sorry. Which one? Is you.
Okay, thank you.
Ah, this one. Okay.
Guten Tag, meine Damen und Herren. Alle Protokolle beobachtet. Ich werde diese Präsentation auf Englisch fortsetzen. My name is Ibuku. I'm a co-owner of Top-Notch Poultry Limited, and I am really delighted to be here today. I'm really grateful for this opportunity to speak to you guys today, to share my experiences as a young businesswoman, and I would really enjoy if you flow with me. So, the chicken lady. This is a picture that depicts how my passion for the chicken farming began when I never was interested in doing agribusiness. But I found myself in IITA as an agripreneur, and that gave the opportunity to become a part of this business. And today, in and around IITA, I am known as a chicken lady. Top-Notch Poultry is a small-scale commercial feed-to-fork broiler business, and the basis for our business is the gap that exists right now in Nigeria between the amount of chicken consumed and the amount that is actually produced in the country. As you can see, the difference, it's just about 30% produced, and what we are planning to do as a small-scale commercial is actually not even existing yet, and we're trying to really put this forward and make it fly in Nigeria. So the background, as I have said earlier, is through the IITA program, and this is the model we all went through. Myself and other colleagues of mine will go through the mindset change and mobilization, and we get trained, we get mentorship through the DG and so many other mentors out there, and then we start a profitable business ventures. And to the right is my one of my colleagues in Imo State in Nigeria who are also into chicken business, but they do eggs. I'll actually use this opportunity to also say they are also open to investments to be able to scale up and also use the proper technologies to do the chicken business. In Top-Notch, our value chain, as I said earlier, is a feed-to-fork approach. That is, we have feed mills, we have our parent stock farm, the broiler units down to processing, and also down to the food and retail outlet. This is so that we can have a total control over the whole value chain, and then we're able to monitor our own cost ourselves, not other people, producers determining the cost and all for you. So you are able to manage the whole system properly. This is my lovely team. That's me and my colleague Yetunde. She's in charge of the production and processing aspect of the business, while I am in charge of the retail and food aspect, and these are the sub-units under each of this management units. And that is our angel investor in the person of Dr. Eric Cooper, Strat Advanced Limited, who owns 40% of the business, while myself and my colleague own 30% of this business each. Now I'd like to go through my experiences, the challenges, and what we experienced through the course of this business. We started last year, January 2017, and feed was really one of our major concerns because it constitutes 70% of the total cost of production. We had so many issues, lack of inconsistent supply, inconsistent mixes. We had to change from one type to the other every time, logistics, transporting it down, so many issues we had. And this is why we have said that the solution to this is having our own feed mill with the use of latest innovations especially the feed multi-cracker, which is a form of processing the feed instead of milling. It involves cutting, and from research they've gotten to know that this method allows the chickens to grow properly. It improves their digestive system and definitely improves their growth. And also the rebuild mixer is also a new technology that we're going to be using. The next is this was a nightmare for us last year, December, where we lost about almost 1,000 out of 2,000 day-old chicks due to heat stress, lack of proper logistics, and this was a very major time for us because we lost a lot of money. It was supposed to be for the December sales and Christmas sales, but we ended up not making so much money. The chicks constitute 15% of the cost, which you would agree with is also a very, very important aspect. And this is what has also led us to adopting this new innovation, which is hatching the chicks on the farm. We have our own parent stock farm, definitely, so we just transport the eggs instead of transporting chicks, so which is much better. The eggs then hatch on the farm, and the chicks get to grow straight up in the environment instead of transporting the chicks in harsh environments. Well, this looks like a nice picture, but I can bet you it's a very, very horrible picture because there's so many things, lack of biosecurity. This was our makeshift facility. It was originally designed for ruminants, but because we were eager to start a business last year and do something, we decided to just make use of it and use it for the business. You see so many feeders dropping and wasting feed spillage, water, the water lines also, the birds climbing on top of it, lack of proper structures for the bird. We majorly had heat stress problems throughout this period, the open environment, rats infestations, and so many other things that you can imagine went wrong with them. So this is what led us to having the standard broiler pens where everything is in its own place. You have the proper biosecurity measures, the proper floor plan, the proper roofing for heat resistance and all things like that that will make the chickens grow properly. Also, we've been able to, with the help of our angel investor, we'll be able to partner with some Dutch companies in terms of Impex and Roxel to help us build equipment that were originally designed for large-scale farming, but have been designed to suit our own small-scale commercial model. Well, currently we've also acquired 8 acres of nice rotisserie chicken from Wasn't Dreams there. So yeah, it's very important that data is being collected, analyzed, and shared among farmers. So this is our own reference farm here in Nigeria. But because of the model of the business, we hope to have many more models and franchise networks all around Africa and all. So there should be proper networking of information so that all the units will be able to share data and know if they are all doing fine and doing what is supposed to be done. This is very, very important for the business groups. Also, last year we made use of Wave, which is an app that is for small businesses. With this app, we've been able to track our cash flow and profit and loss and so many other things. You can see somewhere here, last year, this was when we had major investments in April, and you can see the inflow and outflow of cash. Here in May, we had a major disease outbreak. We had a mycoplasma because we did not use proper buildings and also, but we tried to also invest again in August and made some better structures, and then you can see that there's a little bit of rise. The December sales too was a little bit not as much as we expected because of the loss of most of the chicks that would have sold as a chicken. And also this is our profit and loss accounting for that year. So currently we process 500 birds per week and we make a revenue of $90,000 per year and a net profit of $14,000 per year. We have a profit margin of about 20%, which we think is still fine for a broiler business. We started last year with a loan from IITA of $14,000, which has been fully repaid. And currently investment is ongoing. Like I said earlier, investment worth about $150,000. And this is a breakdown of what that's going to be. By the end of 2018, we should be producing 1,000 birds per week, and we should be able to generate a revenue of $200,000 and make a net profit of $40,000. And also staffing, you can see we employ more people. And then with further investments, as much as it comes, this can be replicated with other franchise models, other youths owning their own franchise models and paying back loans and all, and then staff, everything increases proportionally. Yeah, so like I said, $150,000 loan is being investments is being used. Part of it was gotten as loans from me and my fellow colleague here today, and the remaining part was put in the business by the angel investor. And this is being used currently for the farm units and the retail outlet. We're still seeking investment for the feed mill and the incubation and training parts, which will only be in the reference units and not the other units. And we also need a company car for proper logistics and also a mini loader. So the future of the business is the scaling units is going to be a function of what we are establishing right now, which is the reference cluster unit, which is a result of investment and obviously training. So currently, every other cluster breakdown is as shown here. There's about $270,000 to establish other franchises that when youths come to the reference units and they are trained, they can then go and own the already established cluster units, which is a function of the revolving fund. The revolving fund here means investors can put in money, which will be used to establish these units for the youth. They come, they get trained. Instead of going around to look for loans, they just go there and start owning those businesses, and then they pay back as they make profit. The franchise fees, and it goes on and on like that, depending on the number of investments and amounts that is gotten. So I would like to say I am really, really happy to have this opportunity. I am proud of what I'm doing. I'm a happy young businesswoman, and I cannot wait for other young people like myself out there to also get opportunities like this, get Okabi business angels to invest, loans, grants, and I believe so many other people can also make business for themselves. And this is a picture of our processing center in Ibadan, where the blue light is used for the chickens so they stay calm before they are slaughtered, and all that is also new technology. Danke, Sarah. Thank you very much.
Let's have Zacharias come and tell us the Sorghum story. So this is Zacharias Izua, and this is okay. Floor is yours.
So, good evening.
It's the end, actually. Thank you for coming. This was my mistake. Here we are. It should say welcome now. Yeah. Here we are.
All right. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Zacchaeus Isua. And I want to start on a very emotional note because I'm representing a group of youth in Nigeria that have had a very bad experience. I come from the part of the country where the menace of Boko Haram insurgency is at its peak. And I would categorically say that the problem of youth unemployment is not that which we feel is a small problem. It's a very huge problem, and we need the effort of everyone, including everyone in this building today, to counter that problem. My presentation will take a brief outline. I'll give you a background. I'll try to go through how the management of Sorghum enterprise is running. Also the product overview. It will be out of place if I don't talk about the market. We are talking about finance, so I will talk about the financial structure, the challenges, and I will conclude. This picture there was actually shown by the DG of IITA. I want to say that this was replicated in 36 states of the Federation in Nigeria. For just 5,000 people were needed to be recruited, and there were millions that were there. And a lot of youths lost their lives. I would say that every year we have about 200 graduates that pass through the National Youth Service Corps program, and every year you have 200 unemployed graduates come into the ever-increasing labor market that is never reducing. That will result to civil unrest because there are no viable options. So it's easy to get these youths to do wrong things. It's easy to recruit them into insurgency and into all manner of bad things in the society. Something drastic needs to be done. And I believe that agriculture has the only potential to ameliorate this situation. So all thanks goes to the DG of IITA 2012, started the IITA Youth Incubation Platform. I was so privileged. I was part of that team. Myself and my colleagues, we had an 18-year incubation program. And at the end of it, we discovered a niche in sorghum seed grain production. But we need to say that the passion was not because there were no other commodities. We had colleagues that had interest in cassava, in soybean, in yam, but we particularly wanted sorghum. You may ask me why. Maybe when I continue with that, later we'll identify the reason. Our vision, number one, we want to be the leading producers and suppliers of high quality sorghum seed and grain in West Africa. We also have a mission to strive to deliver a recognized customer satisfaction with regards to high quality sorghum grain and also seeds. To do that, we have a very effective management structure. Sorghum enterprise consists of 6 partners. So we have modified ourselves into various operations. We have the finance, we have the marketing office, we have admin. Also, we feel it's very important to monitor what we are doing, and as well to do a lot of communications, because our operation involves a lot of farmers, with ourselves inclusive. So how to sell our products, the logistics, storage, and all of that. And we concentrate our activities on 3 major sorghum varieties that are in high demand. That is the CSR01 and CSR02 varieties. They are white sorghum, and also the yellow sorghum, Samsung 17. These sorghum varieties are high yielding, and we decided to take them because it's an improved technology as against what other local farmers are using. Sorghum enterprise is very, very profitable because our unit investment has about $1,000 is required for us to have a unit investment. And when we do the mathematics at the end of the day, for 1 hectare, we are able to have a profit margin of about $403. So when we run our production, the entire business has a cost-benefit analysis of 1:1.6. Before we ventured into the business, we were well trained in the IITA incubation platform. So we had to do our market analysis so that we will know what we are going into and how we will thrive well in the terrain. We intend that the sorghum industry is worth $50 million. So we want to get our share from that money. And we targeted large-scale processors and also large-scale farmers. We also are careful about those buyers that are health and quality conscious, because we are in an environment where some people don't care about health and also quality. But we want to promote health, we want to promote quality. And we are willing also to start our business from the North Central where we are located. We will expand in Nigeria and eventually in West Africa. Now, we have a lot of target size demand. From our immediate environment, we have, we have a particular demand of about 40,240 tons. And that is the demand we intend to meet this year. How can we meet this demand? Honeywell flour mill have this 20,000 tons demand of high quality sorghum, particularly the Samsung 17, the yellow variety. IITA business incubation platform need 240 tons of clean high quality white sorghum. Guinness Nigerian PLC requires 20,000 tons of clean high quality sorghum grain. Now this demand is yearly. So Sorghum Enterprise will limit the activity for now due to financial constraint to attempt to meet all of these needs. So we have a sales projection, and our sales projection has a 20% increase yearly, starting from year 1, 2018. We have a projection for 5 years, so we intend to have a 20% increase over 5 years. Now, to enable us achieve this, we have a demand, or the business itself will require a financial startup of about $72,222. And we, as the business partners, we came together and were able to put together $8,333. So we have a loan requirement which we feel we can be able to pay back at 9% interest rate. We have this business and we have tried it. We have seen how it works. And we believe we are in a time where in Africa, ICT should come into business. So Sorghum Enterprise, we intend to promote its variety through loyalty incentives. We have online advertisement that we do about our products. We use the social media, and as well, we intend in the long run to engage in trade shows. Like my colleague said earlier, I will also say that it is a nice business. It has gotten us youths actively engaged in it, but we've met a lot of challenges. We've met a lot of challenges, and one of them I will just say is the challenge of mechanization. Because there was a question that how can youth remain in agriculture? Agriculture, farming is cool. So the enterprise, through our exposure, we've identified that with effective mechanization, it's not going to be difficult to preach agriculture to any youth. The youths will take agriculture and they will do the needful as regards to providing the food Africa requires, and as well to engage in multiplying that model. Now we have had challenges with policies, we have had challenges with rural infrastructure, market linkages. But what has helped us all through these challenges is appropriate alignment, particularly with government policies. We aligned properly, like we had some challenges with land, but we were able to align with a senator in Nigeria then, and he gave us about 500 hectares of land in Nasarawa State in Nigeria, where we are doing our activities. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude by saying this, that the untapped wealth space in agriculture, it has the potential to accommodate the unemployed youth population. Now that potentials in the youth, particularly in agribusiness, can only be set in motion through proper monitoring and coaching that will also be linked to available startup funds. We have been testifiers to this because we are testament to the fact that even without full exposure to agriculture, youths can be actively and profitably involved and participate in that agribusiness space. So thank you very much for this.
Can I ask you to come here, please? Terania? And let's open the floor. Questions, comments, business advice? Matthias.
I first would like to thank both of you. It was really a pleasure to listen to these enthusiastic talks, and we really feel that you like what you're doing, so thanks for that. Potova, I have a question for you. Once you have accounted for the investments in chicken rearing, the biggest cost factor is actually the feed eventually. There are other examples from Southern Africa with black soldier flies, or let's say with insect farming. Have you considered trying to cut the cost of feed by going into one of those new business directions, let's say?
Thank you for your question. Actually, we know that, yeah, feed is the highest cost of production, but what our own model is really trying to work with is not necessarily reducing the cost, but at least ensuring that we still have the right things, the right premixes, the right additives and all in the feed that you're giving to your chickens. So it works this way that you might necessarily not be able to reduce the cost, but at least you're not buying the wrong things, you're not buying inconsistent quality feeds, you know what you're giving to your chickens. So that's basically what we've worked with. And then we'll be working with some crop industries in Nigeria that produce maize and soybean and all. We'll be in contact with them to also always get raw materials and all from them.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, both of you, for your talks. And I would like to ask both of you, because Zacchaeus, you closed your talk with saying that proper mentoring and coaching was super important. So what were your biggest lessons learned throughout the program, but also throughout your practical experiences? What were maybe the skills you lacked before that enabled you now to become successful business owners?
Okay, thank you very much. I want to say that, to start with, on a very normal ground in Nigeria, where I came from, you can hardly see a youth that want to take agriculture as a means of living. Now we have this mindset of this white-collar job, you just want to sit in the office on that AC and all of that, so nobody is thinking about agribusiness. But when we came to IITA, we started seeing our DG, we started seeing other scientists, talk about agribusiness, talk about the money you can get from it, talking about the effect as relates to creating employment and taking yourself out of dependency, and now you are actually helping people. That built a leadership skill in us, and now that built our minds to responsibility. We now feel that, okay, now it's our responsibility to lift Africa. So that passion we got only from the incubation platform. So lesson number one, we actually learned leadership, which is very important. And I believe with leadership, most of all these problems in Africa will be over. So, and that's it.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Thank you, all three of you, for your presentation. It's very passionate and it's very inspiring. I have a question for Doctor. What is the process to getting into the group? And maybe also the other people can chime in. And also the second question is, how is this being outscaled in terms of what are the strategies for making this school a much bigger initiative and a strategy?
Yeah, I think when we started, it was instant. And really, just like a parent, as I said, see these kids they're my kids, and my kids are just in some problem, and trying to do something about it. So really, there's no planning. When I said it was really just taking it from the heart. So the first group, 50, actually I put them under a test because it was easy when you come in IITA. IITA is a very good institution, very well supported, and the first idea these young people will be, oh, I'm getting a job, I'm going to get a job. But make sure that they understand that there is no job. The only thing I could do, I said, we're going to have lunch. And the rest, well, you generate your salary the way we presented. 3 weeks later, it was reduced by half. Because those who thought, basically it was about chance to get a job ran very quickly. 25 stayed. And for 6 months they were having only lunch. And I have to say, to talk about leadership, yes, true leadership. I spend, in addition to my job of DG, every day I spend 1 hour with them, coaching, discussing. And coaching is not a normal, just classical way of training people. Every Friday, for example, we had to jog with them. We had to basically teach them the way of living, the general mindset. So that group basically stayed, and we started having some interest when they're proud explaining some of the things they're doing. They start really in 6 months coming with new products of food and so on, using technologies for IITA. Then the other young people start getting interested. And some politicians who came to IITA, governors and so on. And when they were coming to visit IITA, the last stop was for the governor and so on to meet with these young people who had stayed. And they would describe what they are doing. As the governor of Oyo State, where we stayed, said, well, I have plenty of young people, I would like to start this program as well. Then they have a service in Nigeria, it's called the Youth Corps. After you graduate, you just go in the civil service for a year. And most of them wanted to come to be an entrepreneur, and then we charge those who were experienced to start selecting the others, because we never wanted them just to come anyhow. And from that moment, we started writing strategies, training manual, and so on. And so there are 2 ways the governments, 25 governments on the continent are taking this program, and they're taking a loan to make sure that this program go through. And IITA and other institutions are in charge of training, mentoring, and so on.
Kwesi.
Yeah, my name is Kwesi Atakra. I'm also from the IITA group. I just want to follow up on the question of Andreas about why only the business side. I think we've seen from Zacchaeus' presentation that the business begins from the farm. So we also encourage the production element, like the sorghum work. It's really about production. The thing is, if you have only 1 acre of 2 acres, you probably wouldn't go into sorghum because you wouldn't get much. So the size of the land basically determines what you can do and which will enable you to get money. But the mechanization point that Zacchaeus mentioned is a critical issue, because farming has been looked at as a real drudgery, and we are still doing hoes and cutlasses. And these young people are not going to be interested in that domain. Having 1 hectare with a hoe and a cutlass. That's the way they've seen their grandfathers and grandmothers do farming. And so that is part of the culture change. It's really to try to let people know that there is a new way in which you can bring knowledge, technology, leadership, experience, everything into farming for the youth. So I agree with you. We can't only focus on the business and the agribusiness dimension. We also have to look at various opportunities for generating actual production elements based on land availability and also being able to generate some of these technologies and mechanization that makes it more attractive to the young.
Dr. and Zacchaeus, tell us a little bit about your biographies. What did you do before?
Okay. Funny enough, I read agriculture in school. I studied agricultural extension and rural development. But upon graduation, I never ever wanted to do anything agri. My father always had this backyard farm where we plant stuff. So, well, I had a little idea about agriculture, but nah, because of the grudge, So, well, one thing led to the other. I found myself in IITA. Okay, I worked with Cassava. I can assure you it was terrible. I wouldn't say it was nice, I know. Well, for one reason or the other, I knew at a point I was going to leave, and I knew there were no jobs out there. And then the IITA entrepreneur opportunity was open, and like, oh, come for an interview to become an agripreneur. I was like, what's an agripreneur? Like, oh, okay. I tried, and then I got selected. At first, I was thinking, is this the right choice? Like, really, I have to go to the farm. Just like I said, the production aspect is really, really important. You can't just ignore that part. But I really say perseverance has also really been something that all youths have to really put into consideration. Nothing good comes easy, and nothing good comes overnight. So the perseverance aspect of it. But I would say, well, my mindset was changed. Even when I started the chicken business last year, January, there were still some doubts and all. Last year, December, there were some issues, and well, I would say we almost split up the whole business. Like all of us had issues with each other. We were just getting to know each other and all. But well, this year came January, and we all sat together. We had a roundtable discussion, and then we all spoke to each other like, what do we want to do? Who are you? Can I know you better? We got to know ourselves and what we want and what we don't want. And I would say that's what has really helped me till now. Like now, I am ready to put my all in this, and I know it's not going to come all easy. Like maybe by the end of this year, I might not even be a millionaire by this year. I know it's a long-term stuff, and I'm in it, and I'm really waiting for that time when I'll be a millionaire. But I know it's going to come soon. Yeah. So that's my brief story. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm also a graduate of agriculture. I read crop protection. So, like she said, after graduation, I came from where Boko Haram is operating. So, when I was posted to the National Youth Service Corps program away from my place, it was a miracle for me. Okay, I'm leaving this terrain. This terrain is bad. Okay, I'm going somewhere else. So I found myself in IITA. And fortunately enough, that was when the IITA incubation program started. So I was in the program, and suddenly opportunities I'd never seen when I was in school in agriculture started popping up. I started seeing fish, I started seeing cassava, I started seeing processing of soybean to soy milk, I started seeing things. I said, wow, interest from nowhere started coming. Okay. When I made up my mind to do agribusiness, when I think then we're having a class during the incubation program when we're taught about the business aspect, the cost-benefit analysis, okay, what you will spend, what you will get at the end of the day. And I said, wow, if agriculture can be like any other business, so why not? Why not do agriculture? And by the way, there are no jobs anywhere. So it was enough for me to sit there and put my head to work, to learn whatever I needed to work and to do, and then those experiences have helped us far. Permit me to say again, during the incubation program, I had colleagues that had nothing to do with agriculture. My team, we are 6. We have a lawyer in our midst, and we have a biotechnologist in our midst, and we have a builder too. So I've seen colleagues that had nothing to do with agriculture. I said, no, these guys have nothing to do with agriculture and they want to do this, so why not remain? So that was enough for me to remain in agriculture and agribusiness.
Allow me to add. So the unique part of what he just said is these people from various backgrounds then bring their previous knowledge and experiences and then put them together into agriculture. You see quantity surveyors, they bring their own knowledge and help with the agricultural aspect of what they're doing, and it all comes out nice.
Lino. Hi, my name is Lino Diaz from Bayer. I really liked your presentation. It was a pleasure listening to you, very motivating. You have a lot of ambition inside you. I'm sure you are already making plans to conquer the world, starting open offices around Africa and around Europe. What do you foresee as your major challenges? Are there from an internal nature in terms of financing what you are able to achieve yourself, or are they external? What will be your explanation of how you can expand more?
Okay. Capacity is key, and we can't talk about expansion if capacity is not in focus. In as much as we know that there are both internal factors and external factors, and I think when I was making the presentation, I spoke about government policies, I spoke about mechanization, and also this is agribusiness, so the issue of pests, the issue of other challenges that have to do with production are there. But I believe, like every other business, we have to study the terrain, and we have to put all of these challenges in focus and try to align ourselves properly so that we can thrive in that terrain. So we've done it for the past 2 years. So we believe that we can replicate the success we've had over time. So with good financing and putting mechanization as a very important key, because like I said, this is youth in agribusiness. If you don't talk about mechanization, the sustainability will not be there. So with good financing and good mechanization, with the training we have, we would surely expand and thrive.
Well, honestly, I think financing is the most important part. I have really other colleagues in Nigeria waiting with their business plans ready. So many great ideas, so many plans. Even it's one thing to have your mindset changed and okay, yeah, I want to do the agriculture now. Then it's another thing for you to have all the resources. We all know that even if you start with 1 hectare, you can make something, but you can't compare it to what you make with 10,000 hectares. So really, I think financing is a major challenge. Even my own business now, I still have financing as a challenge to actually achieve what I hope to achieve as a business model. Just partially we started. We have to start, we can't just sit back and watch. So we have to take loans that I would have to pay back probably by a period of 3 to 5 years. That's really, well, sometimes when I think of it, it's a big thing for me, but well, you have to take risks to make it also. So I think financing is the major challenge.
Just 1 second. Everybody knows that credit and availability of credit in Africa is one of the biggest problems, not only in agriculture, in any kind of business. Saginga, tell us a little bit about the interest of the African Development Bank in these activities and how they might be able to help these young entrepreneurs in getting started, also financially getting started.
So there are 2 aspects to it. There is the aspect of grant and the aspect of loan, not only to the government, but to the private sector as well. So we have started a program with 25 governments in Africa, where a country come and say, well, I have a problem with the youth like in Nigeria and I want to resolve it. And therefore, I'm taking a loan of 200 million and I want to train probably, in that case in Nigeria, 1,000 young people per state. So take a loan. And there are 3 aspects of the program. This is a program for incubation and training. There is a section of basically business, and the third one is about finances. Although in terms of finance, basically the plan is that the country give a loan to these young people Our limit is a maximum of $50,000 and repayable in 5 to 10 years. But the way it's really operating is also an institution which is charged with de-risking the money that the commercial bank can lend to these young people. And the amount is $50,000 basically. The second option is for the private sector. And the private sector going to ADB and basically make a commitment to associate themselves with some of the young people, it's kind of like partners, or I don't know if that's what you call angel partners and so on, big business angels. And finally, we discuss with the president of ADB, getting all the young people in those financial discussions and so difficult. So we have designed a program of grant of $20,000 per selected youth to start, basically. And that's how ADB is operating.
Thank you. Please.
I have 2 questions. First, for the agripreneurs, how have you been able to inspire the younger generation behind you? And for Doctor, what are the best ways to create linkages between the African diaspora and the local youth? Because sometimes when you see programs for the diaspora, we treat both groups as separate. This program for the diaspora and this is for the local youth. And often that creates maybe sometimes some complexes of superiority and inferiorities, and that can create an issue because the local group, the local youth, they have a better understanding of the context. They're more in touch with the context than we could possibly be here. While maybe we might have here a better understanding of or different ways of creating business. So how do we create synergies so that we can learn from each other? And also that also gives the diaspora even a better focus on what they can collect here to take back.
Thank you for your question. I'll say I've been able to inspire the younger generation, especially my siblings, by, well, number one, being proud of what I do. As long as I'm out there, people like you should be a model or something. Like probably if I didn't have a career in agribusiness, maybe I would have tried my luck with them. And I tell people, yeah, I'm an agribusiness model. Well, I'm a model in the farm and all so things like that. And then I try to encourage people like, don't be like horse, like don't start too late. So whenever you have any opportunity, lots of I've been speaking to a lot of young people, like people that are still in the university, and now try to motivate them. Like someone was speaking to me not long ago, someone from my school. She was like lower level when I was in school, and she's like, wow, like you did agric and then you're like now you're all over the place. And I was like, well, agric pays, so well you come into it, so it's not as bad as you think. Find it's challenging, it's tiring at first, but well, just like I said earlier, perseverance. So I try to tell them that it's not going to be all rosy, but you just have to put your all in, put your best in, and there'll come a time, there'll come a day when all your hard work, like when you were younger, would pay you. Like when we're older, instead of then working as gatemen or something, like some people that have not made good use of when they were youth. It's better to work now. I still have the time, I have the energy. I may not have all the money, but well, I have the energy now. So I'm working now for future time. So I think when people sit and be like, oh yeah, well, there are young people doing it and they're making it. So I think I'm an inspiration to some people in that aspect.
Okay. To share my experience of how I've inspired people. Let me just give you a little story, maybe to answer your question. Last year, production, I was on the field from about 3 months. It's a rural area. So I left the capital, federal capital territory of Nigeria, to go to a rural area for 3 months. So I was there in our Sorghum field, doing the whole agronomy, and one of those youth that usually come to the field to assist, we started talking one of that evening, and we were conversing. So he asked me a lot of things about me. I told him I'm a graduate and I'm doing agriculture. He was shocked because he was actually going to school so that he could leave the rural area and go back to town. So I was trying to tell him that I'm excited. He was right. When are you going to leave this village? Because it was a village. When are you leaving this village to go back to Abuja? I said, no, until my crops are done. This is my investment. I need to be here. This is my money. I need to take care of it. You know, like a whole lot of things. He was reading law. He was now asking me, is it possible he wants to change to agriculture? That was what he was telling me. I called him, I said, no, you can still graduate as a lawyer and you come to do agribusiness. He said the way I carry this agri-gospel, he just likes the whole thing, and suddenly, that is just one example. There is a whole lot of influences in our immediate environment where we have t-shirts where you put farming is cool and you wear it, you go everywhere, you are proud of it. There was one day, I think we were at a military checkpoint. In Nigeria, I had a lot of military checkpoints. So I was in a military checkpoint, and I was talking to my colleague. I said, this military man is putting on his khaki. Does he know that I'm also putting on my own khaki here? And I said, what did that mean? I said, I'm putting on farming in school, so we're at the same level. So a level of pride of what we do, and the way you talk about it is enough influence. And I think it has been very impactful.
Yeah, I think you're right about the diaspora. We have to make an effort in that direction because the president of the African Development Bank was telling me that the amount of money the diaspora from US, the Africans who are in US and Europe, send back to Africa is around 3 billion. And that money is sent just for social activities only. And really, just trying to imagine if that will transform in terms of investment, it could be in all type of investment. I believe we will have to make an effort. I'm taking really serious note of all this. Maybe we have to find ways of engaging the diaspora and. But I'm going to talk about as well what's happening not only with the youth in Africa for this moment. When I started working at IITA as a DG, for 2 years I couldn't see any African businessman coming to my office to come and say, I want to do business and so on. And when the petroleum price went down, and we come in the kind of crisis in Nigeria, as was not in the state, even people start changing mind. Every day or every 2 days, you see someone say, I'm leaving the bank, I'm buying 3,000 hectares of land, I want to do cassava. You see a lot of people going basically into agriculture and really investing in it. So people start seeing even those politicians, corrupt politicians and so on. These days they don't just take money and send it to Europe, in Switzerland and in the bank. They are now investing in land, and they want to, it's a really change and when you talk with these governors, everybody tell you, let's go back to land because that's where the future is. So even the policies are changing. I think a colleague from Bayer, I think those countries are very ripe for this kind of investment. Agriculture is becoming an investment. Yes, there are countries which are very much advanced in this. Certainly, there are some countries that are behind, but this is the time to invest there. We had an exchange program once, I think 2 years ago, where one of these entrepreneurs, like they are coming here, went to Sweden at Uppsala, and they went to give a presentation. This is the way it's given to the young people at the University of Uppsala. And 6 months later, I think 17 young people from Sweden came to IITA to come and study what these young people were doing. There's some exchanges going on between even European and Americans and this young Africa. What it tells me is probably this is a time for these young people to start making kind of partnership with the colleagues in the north, here in Europe, because 60% of the arable land is in Africa. The next frontier of agriculture is going to be there, at least in terms of space for cultivating the food for the population which is going to grow. And the people are going to be doing this business, they are these guys here. So this is a good time as well. It's just one way. This is a good time for some programs here in Europe as well to start thinking about this kind of joint opportunity. And the mentality of the young people is almost the same. It's not like us where the complex, when you have to go to Europe and you think twice, you are basically afraid. With the new generation, there is no difference between them. One's technologies, the same technologies and so on. I believe this is a good opportunity for the future of the two continent countries for investment. Nobody wants to talk about help anymore in Africa. At least these young people, they won't say, help me, help me, help me. I gave them, when they started the business, $14,000. And I said, this is a loan from IITA. Yeah, in less than 1 year, they returned the money. They returned it. So, it's business. It's business. And yes.
Namanga?
Thank you. Namanga Ngondi from the IITA board. Congratulations to the young entrepreneurs and their coach.
Mentor.
The coach. Coach. That's great. But the financing part probably is a little more tricky. For chicken lady, it's both difficult and easier. For the chicken lady, you can show equipment, the farm, the rest. That's easier to attract maybe investment. Okay. For the sorghum or commodity part, it's slightly more difficult to accept you build silos and the rest, which people can come and seize if you fail to pay back. But you showed in your market analysis 3 major outlets for sorghum. Have you explored forward purchasing? I mean, you are not yet a significant producer, so you can arrange a forward purchase of 100 tons or 200 tons, which you are going to supply and harvest. That gives you money to be able to run your business. It's just a suggestion. And for chicken lady, it might be if you have a supermarket chain where they can buy 5,000 chickens ahead and you supply during the year. So we should find other ways of getting financing rather than going to a bank to get a loan. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make a little comment on that. Like I said when I was mentioning the challenges, I said as a business we've tried to align ourselves to policies and to see how we can walk through the challenges. I think one of the innovations we want to do is that there is a scheme in Nigeria now which is called the Anchor Borrower Scheme, and I think it's done by the Central Bank of Nigeria, where there is a fund you will be given in advance to do your production, and maybe at the end of the day you balance the sheet. So we're trying to align with that scheme, and even I think that's basic. So we're trying to align with that scheme so that we can access funds to run the enterprise.
Try this. Yeah. Try this and be able to do it.
Yeah. Ken?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Ken Dashiel. I work at IITA. I'm both Goku and Zacchaeus. You both studied agriculture?
got your bachelor's degree in agriculture. And if I understood right, both of you were really not interested in going into agriculture after you graduated. Can you give us some advice about what needs to change in the curriculum or the education that you received from your two universities so that graduates will be interested in agriculture and will have the skills needed to start some type of agriculture business?
Let me start. Number one, I think the level of mechanization should be brought, and it should be so explicit. You know, when I was in school, basically, yes, there was an element of mechanization, but it was thought as though it's just task. It's not realistic. So we will just understand it and pass the exams, but we know outside there, you don't get those machines. So nobody wants to suffer. So it was enough discouragement, and then the economics of it now, the profit aspect, the business element of agriculture is not properly emphasized in agriculture. So I think it's key that the business element in agriculture should be taken very
important. Well, after we left school, they finally introduced the business part in my school. So about that, I'm happy. But when we were in school, the practical parts were not really taught us. It was only in the 4th year of my course that we did a program called the Farm Practical Year, where you are posted somewhere for 1 year to just farm, to do practical animal skills. We planted cassava, vegetables, chickens and all. But then, just like you said, we just did it just like to pass and graduate. It's not like they didn't really put it in us that, oh, if you do this well, if you manage it well, you get some profit and then you can sustain yourself. So, but now they've finally introduced that, and I think some people are really keen into that already. So I think if the practical aspect of agriculture can be put in the students from even year 1, and they allow them practice it as a business from that year, maybe they give them a piece of land and do it, they give them some money, do it and see what you gain from this, then I think people really know, okay, yeah, oh, I can get something from this, and then they'll be more interested. Not like you just do it just to graduate and get a bachelor degree, which you might not even use later on. So I think the practical aspect of it should be, increased. Thank you.
Tina?
I'm Tina Beuchel from the Center of Development Research. Thanks to all 3 of you for these really inspiring presentations. I have 2 questions. One to Dr. Sanginga. What are your colleagues from the other CGIAR centers thinking about your program? Well, not only thinking, but are they really interested in adopting it? Or do you even think they should be forced to adopting it? So on which level do we talk here? And the other question is to Agribusiness. We hear a lot here in Europe that African, especially I think West African markets get swamped by cheap meat, subsidized meat, and so on. So are you afraid of this issue, or isn't it an issue in Nigeria, or do you think you can outcompete? So yeah, I would like to hear your point on that.
Okay. Well, just like I put in my presentation slide, it's a big concern, especially considering the fact that it's illegal importing. But well, that's still, it's tricky in the sense that it still gives us the market chance that, oh, there's the market there. What we just try to do, especially what I try to do as the retail person, is a lot of convincing. As long as people know that what they're getting is quality, what we supply in Top Notch is freshly dressed chicken. Because of this, we do not even do frozen. What we do is freshly dressed chicken, which has a period of 4 days after slaughter. So after the 4th day, then we process further into rotisserie and other chicken parts, and that's part of why we even decided to set up a sales outlet where we have a restaurant and bar, so that whatever we don't get to sell by the 4th day can then go to the restaurant and add value, and then be sold. But well, just like you said, it's a really major concern, but we're really trying our best not to look at the part that will weigh us down, but go through the other part that, okay, there's still the market there. Those that are patronizing us, patronize us because of the quality they get from us, and then little by little we grow our market like that, and it continues. I'm not afraid. Not anymore.
Yeah, the question, I have to tell you that even my board, when I started the program, they are here.
I wasn't there.
I wasn't there. It was a lot of convincing. It took me practically 2 years to convince the board that this was worth doing. So in 2013, we had a meeting of all the DG and the CG in Dar es Salaam. And I had to explain this program for almost everybody. And of course, yeah, it was the first time to say, well, what ideas and so on. But when we were writing the second phase of the CRPs, this became like an obligation to have a program of use in each of the CRPs. And I have to say that I think are not 2 or 3 centers that are pushing the program the way it's being pushed at IITA. So, yes, we hope everybody will do that.
Please. Thank you, Apios. The presentation was quite inspiring. I just want to ask this question. Bukun, you talked of a role model, and Zacchaeus were talking about carrying this gospel of agriculture. I want to know to what extent you want to go inspiring young people, either by volunteering work, to get them also on board, get them to know about this agriculture. It's no longer for the aged, but everybody, even as youth, can go into agriculture. To what extent you want to go, particularly volunteering looking for youth groups. But when you were presenting, actually, my mind got thinking, you know, of what, because I work in an area where I have a lot of chunk of youth. You know, I was thinking, can I bring together these people and invite you to come and speak to them? So I want to throw to you, 2 of you, how long do you want to go? Or how long can you go in voluntary to teach other youths to come on board and make the business attractive and make really agro-business work? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. It's emotional for me to answer that because I feel that the problem of youth unemployment and hunger in Africa is something that that touches the heart. So for me, I can go to any length to inspire other youth to do agribusiness because it's going to be detrimental to every other youth if the youth themselves don't do agribusiness. One of our productions, which we had, I remember myself and my colleagues, we picked one of these weekends and we called the youth in the village and they were doing the agric. They were doing the normal rural and traditional way of farming. So we took this weekend during when we were on the field. So we took this weekend, we called them together and we had a class for them, about 2 hours, talking about agribusiness, opening their mindsets, linking them to the possible opportunities that they can actually get in contact with when they do this as a business. So if you ask me, can I volunteer? Why not? Why not? I will surely do volunteer to go every length. Even if you want to take me back to where Boko Haram is, I think I don't have a choice. So we have to go and preach the gospel of farming in school. Yeah.
Well, I'm also willing to go any length to tell youths. Well, I came all the way from Africa to Europe to tell people, youths, that agribusiness is indeed the way. So in my own little way, back at home, I try to at least help people, let me put it that way. At least currently we have 9 people, we have 9 working now in my old organization, 4 of us full-time and the remaining 5 are contract. Those remaining 5 were mostly got in. They're also youths like ourselves, but some of them didn't probably go to university and all. Some went to polytechnic. Some actually, one of them went to university, but it was formally a casual. So well, I think it's because our story was inspiring and all that, he got to get contact with us and be able to work with us. So well, I'm willing to go any length to go to any part of the world to tell youths that indeed agriculture is the way. But my business will not permit me to do that because I have to also manage my business. So once in a while, when I'm chanced, I don't mind going around to volunteer and tell youths that indeed they should practice agriculture. Thank you.
Wonderful concluding words from the agripreneurs. Sanginga, let's have some closing remarks from you. I've heard, I told you before, we have some little food and drinks outside waiting for you, and it's getting ready. So, Sanginga.
Yeah, well, just to conclude, thank you for giving us this opportunity to come and discuss most of the questions which were asked here, and also encouraging for these young people. I believe that if we lose this momentum for Africa, it will be a big loss. Big loss. And I'm glad that we have opportunity now to have someone like Adesina at the presidency of the African Development Bank because of his voice. I think some of the head of state are becoming very sensitive to this. One thing I didn't say here, I've started this program in secondary schools as well, because I believe that for this to be sustained, we need to get these young people at secondary school start getting a notion that agriculture is not this whole and so on. Agriculture will be a source of revenue like medicine and so on. So really, Christian, thank you so much, and your colleagues, Jeff, for receiving us here. It's been an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming.